The lodge was dressed in fake pine and soft lies. A sprawling rental outside Spokane, wood-paneled walls, mason jar chandeliers, linen napkins folded into swans. One of those places that pretends to be rustic while charging like it's royal. I'd paid for most of it, quietly, willingly, because that's what I'd always done. There were 37 people at the rehearsal dinner. I counted them without meaning to. Names I barely knew, friends of Molly's fiancé, distant cousins who never responded to Christmas cards but showed up the moment someone said, "Open bar." A few of them smiled at me the way you smile at a hotel clerk. Politely, like I was part of the scenery. The night had that syrupy kind of warmth, the fake family unity that only shows up when everyone has something to gain. The photographers had already arrived, snapping candids while people tilted their wine glasses just so. Every other person was dressed in whites and pastels. I wore gray. I sat at the edge of the head table. Not at the center, not between bride and mother of the bride. That space was reserved for Brian. He hadn't paid for the catering. He hadn't arranged the schedule. He hadn't even RSVP'd until 3 days before. But he was seated front and center, like a king returning to survey his loyal subjects. He shook my hand an hour earlier. Limp grip, perfect teeth. That kind of tan you only get when your life doesn't require a clock. "Thanks for everything, man," he said, with the easy confidence of someone who's never had to follow through. I should have punched him in the throat. I smiled instead. And then Molly stood, champagne glass raised. The photographer drifted in her direction. There was a hush, not reverent, just expectant. The kind of hush that comes before a performance. She wore white even though the wedding was the next day. Some faux bridal thing. A kind of silent theft. She looked at her mother first, Hannah, then Trevor, her fiancé, then finally me. And then she said it. "To Nate," she began, her voice sweet, like sugar before the rot. "Mom's placeholder, until someone better shows up." Laughter bubbled, awkward, unsure. A few people chuckled like they weren't sure if it was a joke. Brian laughed out loud. That part one remember. Loud and loose like it was the funniest thing in the world. His arm was around Molly's shoulder like it belonged there. Hannah didn't laugh. But she didn't speak either. Didn't stand. Didn't say my name. Her eyes flicked toward me once. Brief and blank. And then she looked down at her plate. That's when something old and cold cracked loose inside me. I rose slowly. No smile. No toast. I didn't look at Molly. I didn't need to. 11 years of showing up. 11 years of holding back. 11 years of paying, fixing, driving, solving, being useful but never loved. All of it came to a single point, like a knot pulling tight. I walked the length of the room. Long table stretching like a river of soft betrayals. I passed the wine I bought, the food I ordered, the desserts she insisted on, those delicate lemon cakes no one was touching. My footsteps sounded heavier than they should have. Maybe that was my heart. At the end of the buffet, beside the triple-tier wedding cake with its sculpted sugar peonies, I placed the binder. Black, thick, neatly labeled. Cancelled vows. Paid debts. No father figure required. The words were embossed in silver. Clean. Permanent. Somebody gasped. Or maybe I imagined that part. What I know is the room fell quiet. Real quiet this time. No phones. No clinks. No one moved. I didn't speak. What was there to say? Molly had already delivered the eulogy. All I had to do was lower the casket. I turned and walked back to my seat. I didn't sit down. I walked past it, out the side door, into the cold, into the pine-scented dark, and left the night behind me. But let me take you back, because this didn't start here. I married Hannah when Molly was 13. That's a hard age if you've ever raised one. And I hadn't. I went from single to stepfather in the space of a rented tuxedo and a 3-tiered cake. Molly hated that wedding too. She told me so years later like it was a funny anecdote. She cried in the bathroom, Hannah once said, smiling like it was sweet. Didn't want to call you dad. I told her she didn't have to. She never did. And I never asked her to. That's important. I wasn't trying to replace Brian. I knew better than that. He lived in Austin, visited twice a year, sometimes 3 times if he was between jobs or girlfriends. But no matter how spotty his presence, he always stayed the hero. I was the one who fixed her car when the starter went out in December. I was the one who taught her to parallel park, who drove her to her SATs, who paid for dance lessons and dentist appointments and a stupid summer trip to Costa Rica because everyone else's dad said yes. I worked extra hours to keep up. Freight logistics isn't glamorous, but it's solid. I moved containers from dock to warehouse to distributor, and when my numbers didn't hit, I picked up consulting gigs in the evenings. I missed birthdays, not hers but my own. Still, I stayed out of the way. I was the background. I didn't try to parent, not directly. I didn't go to her soccer games yelling from the sidelines. I sat, I clapped, I paid. And for 11 years, that was enough for everyone but me. It shifted when she got engaged. That's when I felt it, like gravity had changed direction. The way she spoke to me, the way Hannah deferred to her. Suddenly every decision was Molly's, and every expense was mine. "We want something simple," she said. "A backyard wedding, maybe. Something modest." But modest turned into mansion rentals. Floral ceilings, foil-pressed invitations, string quartets, reserved seating for Brian's second wife. That was the part that really burned. She'd been in Molly's life for 2 years. She got a speech and a corsage. I got the bill, but I swallowed it. First, I opened a second savings account. I signed catering contracts. I booked a videographer. The tally passed $18,000 before anyone blinked. Brian sent $300 and a selfie holding a mug that said, "World's Best Dad." I paid the rest. Still, I hoped. Maybe this would be the thing. Maybe this would be the moment Molly saw me, truly saw me. Maybe this wedding, her wedding, would be where the lines blurred and something like real gratitude broke through. She'd started including me briefly. Sample options, venue scouting. She'd even thanked me once for the florist recommendation. Then Brian flew in, and everything shifted again. Suddenly it was, Brian and I were thinking. Or, Dad says the guest list should be more open. That word, spoken with casual reverence, as if I wasn't even in the room. When she picked out a $5,200 dress, I finally pushed back. "I'll cover the deposit," I said. "The rest is on you." She rolled her eyes. "Can't you just step up? Like a real dad would?" That was it. She didn't yell. She didn't throw a tantrum. But I heard it. I heard it in every syllable. Every molecule. Placeholder. A bank account. A man-shaped shadow. And the worst part? Hannah said nothing. Not that day. Not the next. She pretended it hadn't happened. Like silence could erase insult. That night I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room, alone with my laptop and a decade of receipts. I pulled every record I had, contracts, bank statements, calendar entries. I labeled every payment, every check, every scheduled withdrawal. I built the binder over 12 hours and 2 pots of coffee. By dawn I was done. Not just with the paperwork, with the lie, because that's what it had been. A long, quiet lie. A lie told with smiles and needs and half-hearted thank yous. A lie that said, "You're part of this family, as long as you pay for it." So I stopped. After the toast, after the binder, after the walk into cold pine air, I didn't go back. Not to the dinner. Not to the lodge. Not even to Hannah's text that said, "We need to talk." I checked into a roadside motel with buzzing lights and walls that smelled like bleach and surrender. It was perfect. I didn't need comfort. I needed distance. I needed the kind of silence that couldn't be filled with excuses. But even there, under a stiff blanket and flickering ceiling fan, I played it back. The planning, the drift, the betrayal disguised as ceremony. It all started with that single phrase, just something simple outdoors. Molly had said it in April. A breezy promise. A modest vision. Backyard chairs, a short aisle, maybe string lights borrowed from her aunt. I remember nodding, relieved. I thought, finally. Something reasonable. Something we can actually build together. Hannah smiled across the table. "We'll make it work," she said. That sentence used to mean hope. Now I know better. Now I know we'll make it work meant Nate will figure it out. It always had. It began like all weddings do. Pinterest boards, color palettes, whispers about dream dresses and flower crowns. I let myself believe it would be manageable. I even offered to help track expenses. I built a spreadsheet, categorized vendors by rating, cost, and availability. I was efficient. I was prepared. And for the first few weeks, Molly let me in. Can you compare photographers? Would you check if this florist delivers outside Spokane? It was transactional, sure, but it was contact. A line between us I could still hold. I should have seen it then, the way her sentences were changing. The way thank you became cool. The way Nate was starting to vanish from group messages while Brian started appearing. That's when it shifted. Brian and I were thinking of switching venues. Dad says the original menu's too heavy for summer. Brian's friend owns a wine label, so we might go through him. Dad. Always Dad. That word soaked every email, every text, like perfume that lingered too long. Like I was being erased one suggestion at a time. It wasn't just planning. It was a rewriting of roles. I had the logistics. Brian had the light. I kept paying anyway. Venue deposit, $5,000. Catering down payment, $3,200. Florals, $1,800. Videographer, $2,000. Sound system, lighting, chair rentals, travel stipends for her cousins in Nevada. I opened a separate account just to keep it all in order. I told myself it was necessary, that I needed to protect our main savings. But the truth? I didn't want to see the real number, because the number told a story I wasn't ready to hear. $18,742.64. And it was climbing. Brian, he sent a check for $300 and a printed photo of himself in a fishing hat holding a #OneDad mug. He captioned it, "Soon-to-be father of the bride. Can't wait." I didn't even bother asking Hannah if she'd seen it. I already knew. She had laughed. She always laughed at Brian's nonsense. "That's just him," she'd say. "He's harmless." But harmless doesn't gut you with a smile. Harmless doesn't show up twice a year and still get the title, the speeches, the seat at the head of the table. Harmless didn't raise her. I did. Even if no one said it out loud. Even if saying it out loud was forbidden. And yet, I still wanted the day to be beautiful. For her. For Hannah. For something to go right. Just once, without bitterness tagging along like a ghost. Then came the dress. A boutique in Bellevue. Appointments weeks in advance. I didn't know she'd invited Brian until after. When I got the text, "Just so you know, Dad's joining us for the fitting," I didn't respond right away. I stared at the message for 3 full minutes. Not because I didn't have words, but because I knew none of them would matter. I called Hannah. "She wanted him there," she said. "He's her father, Nate. That doesn't take anything away from you." But it did. Took everything. He was there for the dress. I was there for the down payment. $5,200. I told Molly, "I'll cover the deposit. The rest is on you." She didn't argue. She rolled her eyes. Then, soft, barely louder than a breath, she said, "Can't you just step up? Like a real dad would?" It wasn't shouted, but I heard it. I felt it slide between my ribs like a dull, practiced knife. That night, Hannah said, she didn't mean it, but she never told Molly to apologize. She never asked her to clarify. She never defended me, not then, not ever. It was the moment I began to catalog things. Not items, not dollars, absences. Every thank you that never came. Every glance at Brian with that particular softness. The one reserved for fairy tales and absentee fathers. Every moment Hannah chose silence over truth. That was when I became a ghost in my own family. They were building a stage and I was funding the scenery, the lighting, the orchestra. But my name wasn't on the program. I was the understudy of my own life. I started keeping a folder. Not just for the wedding. For everything. Medical bills. Car insurance. College savings withdrawals. Camp registrations. Plane tickets. Molly's root canal when she was 17. The down payment for her first used car. The birthday party she had at 17 with the karaoke machine and taco truck she never thanked me for. The deeper I went, the more I realized the truth. There had never been respect. Just tolerance. Just utility. I wasn't a man to them. I was a ledger. And every time Brian showed up, he erased another line of my name. But I kept paying. Because the only thing worse than being invisible was letting them see how much it hurt. Until the toast. Until she said it, with a grin, under chandeliers I paid for, in front of guests I didn't know. Mom's placeholder until someone better shows up. That's when I knew. I wasn't funding a celebration. I was financing my own humiliation. So I stopped. Quietly. Deliberately. Systematically. The next morning, while the house slept, I logged into every account. Cancelled the videographer. Dropped the catering package from premium to base. Called the florist, reduced the order to bouquet and boutonnieres only. Cancelled the DJ. Blocked my card from further vendor charges. I didn't scream. I didn't write a manifesto. I just pulled the cord and watched the lights go out. Trevor messaged me that afternoon. "Hey Nate, we can't pull this off without your support. Please reconsider." I replied, "Then don't. Plan what you can afford." Hannah called 17 times. I let them ring. She left a voicemail. I saved it. Her voice was furious. "You've destroyed her wedding, Nate. You're punishing everyone because of one joke." But it wasn't a joke. It was the truth, said out loud. At last, she called again. Her voice broke this time. "She's your daughter," she said. "You helped raise her." I answered that one. "For 11 years you wanted me to act like a father. But you never gave me the right to speak like one." Click. Molly came to the house the next day. Eyes red. Shoulders small. She wasn't wearing the bride glow anymore. Just sweatpants and fear. She sat on the couch like a guest in my living room. I sat across from her. "I didn't mean it," she said. I didn't reply. "I was nervous," she added. "I was trying to be funny." I nodded slowly. "It was funny," I said. "Because it was true. At least to you." Her mouth trembled. She looked around the room like she was searching for a script. "I didn't think you'd actually cancel everything." "No," I said. "You thought I'd do what I've always done. Smile. Hey, swallow it." She didn't argue. Because she knew. I stood up. "You don't get to call me not real family and still expect real family sacrifice." She didn't try to hug me. Didn't cry. Just sat there, hollowed out by the weight of words she'd thought were harmless. Then she left. The binder stayed on the counter for days. Black, thick, truthful, like a eulogy no one wanted to read. I didn't sleep that night. Not after the toast. Not after the binder. Not after watching my wife of 11 years pretend her daughter hadn't just spit acid across the room. I lay in bed next to Hannah, stiff as timber, staring at the ceiling while she slept like nothing had happened. Or maybe she wasn't sleeping. Maybe she was just pretending. Like always, around 3 a.m. I got up. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the wind ticking the window panes. I moved through the dark like a thief, collecting everything. Contracts, receipts, email threads, invoices. I built the full picture line by line, cost by cost. Not to defend myself. Not to argue. To remember. Because memory fades. Even anger if you let it. I didn't want this to fade. Total committed to the wedding, $22,416. Total paid by me, $19,381. The rest? Brian's $300. A few deposits from Trevor's parents. And a $75 payment from Molly herself for monogrammed napkins she insisted on. They came with a typo. The irony was almost poetic. By dawn, I had the binder in order. Tabbed by category. Venue, catering, wardrobe, transport, rentals. The cover read, "Wedding Contributions, Nate Carter." The name I signed on every check, the name no one toasted to. That afternoon I went to work. I didn't call in. I didn't send angry texts or draft emotional emails. I sat at my desk, answered shipment inquiries, updated route logs. I ate a cold sandwich in silence. Around 2:30 p.m. I made 5 phone calls. 1 to the caterer, 1 to the florist, 1 to the photographer, 1 to the lighting crew, 1 to the venue. By 4 o'clock, all contracts were either revised or canceled. Anything not yet fulfilled was off the table. Anything not yet charged was blocked at the bank. I kept everything legal, everything clean. I wasn't going to be the villain in their story. Not officially, but I was done being their foundation. That evening, I returned home to voicemails. First, Hannah, I need to understand what you're doing. You can't just pull out now. It's 2 weeks before the wedding. Please call me. Then Molly. I was out of line. I know. But come on, Nate. It was a joke. We've worked so hard on this. Please don't ruin it. Trevor. Mr. Carter. I mean Nate. I don't know what's going on, but we really need your support. We can't cover this alone. Can we talk? Support. That word again. They said it like I was a scholarship fund. Like I wasn't a person. Just a number that made other numbers possible. I let the calls go to voicemail. I didn't need their words. I already had them. All the words that mattered. Spoken with smirks, with silence, with years of slowly eroding respect. Hannah came home late. I was in the garage, tightening the latch on the breaker box door. Pointless chore. Just needed something to keep my hands busy. She didn't look at me when she stepped out of the car. Didn't speak as she passed me. But the moment I came inside, she exploded. You canceled the florist? Yes. You downgraded the catering? Yes. What the hell, Nate? Do you understand what you've done? People have RSVP'd. Flights are booked. I leaned against the kitchen counter. Calm. Measured. They can still come. The wedding's still happening. She blinked. Barely. You gutted it. No, I said. I stopped bleeding for it. Her jaw clenched. This isn't just about Molly. You're punishing all of us. I tilted my head. Am I? She went quiet. Not because she agreed. Because she knew, deep down, that I wasn't wrong. She's your daughter, she finally said, softer now. You helped raise her. I nodded. And I paid like a father. But I've never been treated like one. She crossed her arms. Because she doesn't call you Dad? No, I said. Because you let her treat me like I don't exist. She looked away. And that was the real wound, wasn't it? Not Molly. Not the toast. Not even Brian. It was Hannah. Her silence. Her complicity. Her refusal to draw a line between the man who left and the man who stayed. You could have said something, I said. Just once. You could have told her that I mattered. That I deserved respect. I didn't know I had to, she whispered. You didn't have to, I said. That's the point. 3 days passed. More calls. More messages. Molly stopped by the house on Friday. She didn't ring the bell. Just walked in like it was still hers. She found me in the living room watching a documentary about container ships. Something cold and technical. Something that made sense. I'm sorry, she said. I muted the TV. For what? For the toast. For what I said. I nodded. Okay. She looked around, unsure of her footing. I was nervous. I wasn't thinking. It was stupid. It was honest, I said. She frowned. No, it wasn't. I looked her dead in the eye. Yes, it was. That's why it hurt. She sat on the edge of the armchair like she didn't belong in it anymore. Her hair was up, and her face was pale. Stress or shame, I didn't know which. Are you really not going to help? She asked. We're short on everything now. Mom said you blocked your card from the vendors. I did. Why? Because I believed you, I said. I believed what you said about me. She flinched. I was joking. Were you joking when you said Brian was the only real father you had? Her silence answered for her. I stood, walked to the mantel, and pulled the binder down. Set it on the coffee table. I don't care if you call me Dad, I said. I don't need a title, but I deserved better than that toast. And I deserved better than the silence that followed. She opened the binder. Her eyes moved down the list. Expenses. Notes. Proof. This is everything, I said. She looked up, cheeks flushed. So you're just cutting us off? No. I'm finally treating this like what it is. A transaction. And the credit lines closed. She stood. Her breath caught like she wanted to cry, but tears didn't come. Trevor's freaking out, she said. We don't know how to salvage it. I shrugged. Then plan what you can afford. She stepped toward the door. Do you hate me now? She asked. No, I said. But I stopped loving the version of you that believes I'm disposable. The wedding still happened. Not the grand event she wanted, but it went forward. Brian gave a speech, full of charm, short on substance. The venue was changed, downgraded to a public garden, booked last minute. The catering was boxed lunches from a local deli. Molly wore the same dress, but the sparkle was gone. They tried to pretend it was intentional. Simple elegance, someone called it, but I saw the cracks, the glances, the missing guests, the way Trevor's mother whispered to her husband during the ceremony like she'd bet on the wrong horse. I sat in the back row, ate my sandwich, watched Brian hug everyone but pay no one. Then he left after the cake. Said he had a flight. Of course he did. Hannah didn't sit with me. We barely spoke. Molly never looked my way until the end. And even then it wasn't thanks. It was recognition, like realizing a foundation had shifted under her feet. 3 months later she came back. Not with flowers. With a check. $2,500. This is the first payment, she said. I don't know how long it'll take, but I want to pay you back. I opened the envelope. There was a handwritten note. Thank you for always showing up, for being real. I didn't see it before. I do now. I didn't smile. Not at first. But I nodded. Because something in me, something quiet and buried, finally settled. I wasn't the placeholder. He was, always had been. The check sat untouched for 3 days. $2,500. Drawn from a joint account Molly and Trevor, I assumed. Neat handwriting on the envelope. No return address. Just one line beneath my name in lowercase letters. For what we owe. I didn't cash it right away. I didn't even open the note until day 2. I left it on the kitchen counter where mail usually piled up. Right next to the grocery lists Hannah no longer wrote, beside the coupon booklets I used to toss in the recycling without reading. Funny what becomes sacred once the silence moves in. The house felt hollow by then. Not empty, just absent. Like someone had vacuumed the warmth out of the walls. Hannah moved through the rooms like a visitor. Quiet, polite, eyes always scanning for what she wouldn't find. Conversation had become a fossil. We said what was necessary. Groceries, schedules, weather. Never the wedding. Never the binder. That was buried. Sealed. Filed away like the decade I'd given them. When I finally unfolded the note, I didn't read it all at once. I read it line by line, as if it might collapse under pressure. Thank you for always showing up. For fixing things no one noticed. For staying when leaving would have been easier. I thought being a father was about biology. Now I know it's about presence. I'm sorry it took me this long. No signature. Just, I see you now. The words didn't warm me. They didn't fill the cracks. They just landed like late snow. Too soft to be resented. Too late to be useful. Because that was the truth. It was too late. The wedding was over. The debts were itemized. The family, such as it was, had restructured itself, built not on love, not even on forgiveness, but on a new kind of math. Cold. Correct. Long overdue. Brian never called. Of course not. His role had ended when the lights dimmed and the cake was sliced. I imagine he told the story differently. I imagine, in his version, I was the villain. The bitter stepfather. The one who ruined his daughter's special day because he couldn't handle not being in the spotlight. I didn't care. You can't lose what you never had. But Molly's note, it lingered. Not because it healed anything. Because it proved something. She knew. She had known all along. She'd known who paid. Who stayed. Who cleaned the dishes after every holiday dinner while Brian drank beer on the porch? Who fixed her laptop the night before her college applications were due? Who drove her 3 hours in a snowstorm when she got the flu during spring break? She had always known. She just didn't think it mattered. Not until the bills came due. 3 weeks after the check arrived, I found Hannah crying in the garage. She was holding a box labeled Molly Middle School. Old yearbooks, birthday cards, a broken music box. She sat on the step beside the water heater like someone who'd lost the map. "I don't know what we are anymore," she whispered. I didn't answer. She looked at me like she wanted to fight, but couldn't remember why. Her voice cracked when she said, "Do you still love me?" I didn't answer that either, because love, real love, isn't about how you feel when it's easy. It's about what you protect when things fall apart. And when the toast was delivered, when the silence roared in behind it, Hannah hadn't protected me. She had watched me drown and held the towel. The mortgage was due 2 weeks later. I paid my half. No more. No less. Same with utilities. Groceries. We split everything now. 50-50. Even when the meals we shared came frozen and wordless. The rhythm of our life became functional, mechanical, transactional. Like roommates who once shared something too sacred to name but now shared only receipts. Molly texted once. Asked if I'd gotten the check. I replied, yes. She didn't ask if I was proud. She didn't call me dad. She didn't invite me over. I think she understood the rules now. Respect, once denied, doesn't return just because regret shows up with a ribbon. She had made her choice. Now she had to live in it. 6 months later, another envelope arrived. Different handwriting. Smaller check. $600. A note paper-clipped to the front. We're trying to be consistent. Hope this helps. I smiled, but not because it felt good. I smiled because it was ironic. For 11 years I was consistent. I was the safety net, the filler of gaps, the man who showed up, shut up, and signed the check. And now that I'd withdrawn, now they understood the weight of consistency. A year passed. Molly and Trevor bought a condo, 800 square feet, in a fixer-upper complex just outside Spokane. She didn't ask for help with the down payment. I didn't offer. I sent them a housewarming card. No check inside. Just 2 sentences. Proud of you for building something with your own hands. Costs more, but it lasts longer. No reply. But 2 weeks later, another check came. $1,000 this time. No note. The envelope was addressed not to Dad, not to Nate, but to Mr. Carter. That stung more than I expected, because it meant she still didn't know what to call me. Even now, it took 15 months for Hannah to finally say it. We were at the kitchen table. 2 cups of coffee. 1 tax return spread out between us. She didn't look up when she spoke. You were right. Silence. Then, I should have stopped her. Should have defended you. I nodded. Yes. I was afraid, she said, of breaking something. You broke it anyway. She nodded. I waited. But she didn't apologize. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she believed, deep down, that survival justified silence. That families are built on tolerance, not truth. I disagreed. And that's why 2 weeks later I moved out. I didn't make a speech. I didn't slam doors. I didn't leave a note behind. I packed on a Tuesday. Moved into a 2-bedroom condo closer to work. Quiet neighborhood. No HOA. No expectations. I left the binder on the kitchen table. Beside it I placed the stack of checks. All of them, uncashed. She could frame them if she wanted. Or shred them. Or deposit them. I didn't care. They weren't payments. They were apologies. And I didn't need them anymore. People ask me if I miss them. Molly, Hannah, even Brian in some strange, twisted way. The truth? I missed the idea of them. The idea that I was building something. The illusion that my labor was love. That my presence was enough. But the reality? I was a contractor in someone else's house. Paid in guilt. Fired with silence. So I don't miss them. I miss who I was before I realized it was all conditional. Sometimes I see photos. Molly posts them online. wedding anniversaries, house projects, dinners with Brian and Trevor. She tags him as Dad. Every time, like clockwork. I'm not mentioned, not even once. And yet, somewhere between the kitchen remodels and the baby announcements, I see it, that faint shadow in her eyes, the part of her that knows, that remembers the binder, the cancellation, the consequence. She smiles, but it's thinner now. Respect doesn't arrive with flowers. It arrives late, without warning, and asks to be paid back with interest. So here's the final ledger. 11 years. $19,381. One binder. 0 thank yous when it mattered. And still, I showed up. Again and again. Until the day I didn't. So tell me, who was the real father? The man in the pictures holding the mug? Or the one behind the camera paying the florist? Who do you remember? Who would you have been? And more than that, would you have stayed? Or would you have finally asked, what am I really to these people? And would you have been brave enough to answer honestly? Because I did. And it cost me everything. Except myself.